Good afternoon and welcome to the Grimke School, the future permanent home of the African American Civil War Museum. My name is Sarosha Opadwala. I'm the Director of Real Estate in the Office of the Deputy Mayor. My office oversees the city's real estate portfolio. I am honored to be here today to celebrate the long-awaited redevelopment of the historic school and the permanent home for the museum. We share this celebration with you, all of you, the community members, construction workers, development partners. In particular, I would like to thank ANC Chairman James Turner and Commissioner Rob Hudson. Thank you. In addition, I would like to thank my development team, Esther Ezra and Patrick Smith, Javier Beltran, our attorney, Malik Williams, who was key in the last minutes getting some permits completed, the development team, Grant Epstein, Tom Gallis, Debbie Yogazinski, the attorney again, the councilwoman, Brianne Nadeau, of course, thank you, and the deputy mayor, John Falchicchio, and of course, our mayor, Muriel Bowser, without whose leadership projects like this would not be possible. Now it is my great privilege to introduce to you the man who started this all, the African American Civil War Museum Director and former Ward 1 Council member, Frank Smith.
Thank you very much. Wow. Well, let me first of all thank the mayor, Muriel Bowser, who's here with us today, and the Councilwoman Brianne Nadeau, who's my council member. I live in Ward 4 now, and I have 2 council members. Good, too. Both of them are good. That's right. And so I want to thank them for working with us on this. And the ANC, you've heard this already. James Turner, who's my partner in crime, and the developers who we were supposed to have done this a few years ago, and then one developer walked away, and we had to pick up the pieces. And thank God, Community 3 and Grant Epstein and Tardy Gallis and were there, and they jumped in, and the mayor got it done. So I want to thank all of them for being here, and I guess I ought to say I ought to thank God for this too, because when I started working on this back in 1992, some of y'all weren't even born yet. So, and this neighborhood, that's how it is in Washington D.C. You have to outlive some people to get things done. So, and to do that, to be able to do that, you have to have God's blessing to do that. That's not something you can do by yourself, Virginia Ali. You have to have God to help you with that one. So I want to thank you all for, and I particularly want to say thank you. And on the weekend, somebody just reminded me a few minutes ago that I was at one time the chairman of the Washington, D.C. Baseball Commission. I started the commission in 1982 as a freshman council member back in the day when nobody really believed we were ever going to get a team. And so I'm standing here today on the verge of a Washington, D.C. team going to the World Series. And I'll take a standing room ticket, anything. Ben's got a concession stand out there. I sell hot dogs out there for something, just to get in because I want to see this happen. So I want to say thank you once again. And let me just say 2 things. One, you all know that we started this African American Civil War Memorial for 2 purposes. One was to correct a great wrong in history, which pretty much ignored the contributions of African American soldiers in ending slavery and keeping America united under one flag. When the Civil War started, African Americans had no pathway to citizenship in the United States. We were defined outside in the Constitution as being chattel slaves, and every court decision from that point up to the Civil War reinforced our position, our status in society. And it's something we don't get a chance to fight for our freedom until Lincoln gets himself caught up in a war that he can't win without doing something about slavery. And so he ends up enlisting 200,000 blacks in the Union Army. The nation paid no attention to these soldiers until we built a monument for them up here, Mayor Bowser. We went to the archives, got all those names. And why did we build a monument up here? Because we wanted to find a way to get tourism into this community. We get 20 million tourists In the city every year, they spend $6 billion or so. It used to be 6, probably 10 now. They just spend it all downtown. So it's pretty easy to think if you can find a way to get them uptown, spend some of that money up here, it'll help this neighborhood. And so the second purpose, and so I want to say thank you to the Mayor's Department of Economic Development because, people in economic development know you have to spend money to make money. It's a tough thing, right? Because if you don't have any money, that means you're never going to get any. You have to spend money to make money. And so we had to find a way to get tourism into this community, and we've helped to develop this community. Now, some people say we did that second job too well, that we now got something going on up here called gentrification. It's expensive to live up here, but I'm not apologetic about that. You all, when I first started working up here as a council member, the people were scared to walk around up here. On Friday night, Howard University had the homecoming, all these Howard kids all over this neighborhood. Howard University started busing kids back and forth to these dormitories because they were scared to let them walk around in the community. People need to have a place to live where they can walk to the community, they can go to school. And so I'm not apologetic about that. And we have to fight to make our communities better because we all want to live in better communities. And then we have to fight to stay there. That's the only way we're going to progress in America. And so I'm not apologetic about that. So I'm glad we were able to accomplish that second goal. And you'll hear me talk more about that. But I wanted to today I want to do a couple of special things, and I'm going to do them while I'm up here because I don't get back up after this. When we build this new museum, we move into the building a year from now, we are going to place in front of this building a porch and 2 new doors. So we'll have our own entry ourselves. The architectural firm that's sharing the building with us will have their own entrance, and we'll have our own entrance. And in front of our building, as a way to attract attention from the other side of Vermont Avenue, where the monument is, to this side of Vermont, where our museum is, we're going to place a statue of President Abraham Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation. It'll be the only one in the nation's capital, the only one in the nation's capital of President Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation. It's paragraph 6 of that proclamation that says, persons of suitable condition will be enlisted in the Union Army. Without that, we don't get to be soldiers. We don't get to fight for our freedom. You don't get 200,000 names on the memorial. So we're going to pay you his due respect. And he's going to be looking across the street at that memorial that already sits there where all those names are engraved. And so today I'm going to present to the mayor one of the statues. I thought I was going to have some help for this, but I guess I got to do it by myself. This is now you're going to need some help for this, Mayor.
Okay.
This is a replica. I have 50 of these available. This is number 1. The mayor should have number 1. Now your staff person is supposed to come up here and get this. We're giving this to the mayor of the District of Columbia, and let you stand there with that one. Hold that one for the mayor. I'm also going to present to my Ward 1 council member a statue from across the street. We have 50 of these. We have 50 of these. You'll bring that one up here for her. This goes in the office of the Ward 1 council member.
Okay.
It's a replica signed by the artist, Ed Hamilton, and it's signed and numbered. And I want them to have this as our way of saying thanks for all they did to make this all happen. We could not do this without the mayor. We could not do this without our Ward 1 councilman. And so this is our way of saying thank you to them and thank you to the District of Columbia. Now, while I'm here, let me introduce the mayor. She doesn't need an introduction. They say, Madam Mayor, they say the more important you are in Washington, D.C., the shorter the introduction. So just to show people how important you are, it's going to be a short introduction. She's the mayor of the District of Columbia. Before she was mayor, you all know she was on the city council. She chaired the Committee on Economic Development. This thing has been through a lot of committees in the council, including economic development. She shepherded through economic development when she was a council person, and so she now knows full well what the value of this is as a mayor. And so I'm pleased and happy to stand here today to say thank you to Mayor and to introduce her as somebody who is a pioneer. She and her staff, when they got to work on this, they got it done, and I appreciate that because she's done a great job. And I want to say thank you, and thank you to your staff. You've got a good staff over there. They work hard. When they get on the job, they get it done. So thank you very much, Mayor. The Mayor of the District of Columbia, Mayor Bowser.
Thank you, Frank. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Frank Smith a big round of applause. Our former Ward 1 council member and always dedicated to making sure not only that we grow as a city, but we grow together as a city, and we preserve the rich history that we've been blessed with. And this memorial is certainly a testament and a commitment to how we do that for our city and for our nation. So, Frank, you deserve just tremendous applause and appreciation for all of us for what we have to do. One thing I learned a long time ago when I got into government is some of the decisions that the council is called on and that I am called on to make are not just today decisions. In most cases, they're at least 50-year decisions, sometimes 100-year decisions. And so that's why we have to approach them, and the community has to approach them with great seriousness, because we make them for ourselves, but we also make them for the next generation. And that's how we have approached the use of this beautiful building. It is true that I worked on it as a council member, and it is also true that I changed it a little bit when I became mayor. I had some explaining to do to the community when I did that. But what we were confronted with then, and Sarosh and John will remember, is that it did not, while it was a great proposal, the one that we changed a little bit, it did not do as much as we could. It did not meet my 50 or 100-year standard in that it did not produce enough affordable housing. We had recently set a new target in the previous fall in 2014, and I looked at a few projects around the city, two of them in Ward 1, that could do better by way of affordable housing. I think I had a chat with the council member, and she agreed with us that it was worth a pause and a reset to make sure that we could get all of the things that we needed to get done right here in beautiful Shaw. And I think that you are going to be very, very proud of what's to come. So the African American Civil War Museum will have a new home. That deserves another round of applause. I didn't know about all of the beautiful statues. I think we did some other things with the pedestrian safety and access and connectivity to the metro, which is hugely important. Torty Gallus is coming to Washington, D.C., so give them a big round of applause. If you don't know Torty Gallus, you probably know a building that they have designed around our city, and they came into this project when it changed, and I think we are going to be very, very happy to welcome them, their employees. This will become your world headquarters, and we are so proud of that addition. But in addition to that, we are going to have almost 70 units of more housing, and an increased target for affordability, because we took that little pause, and now we'll have almost 20%, if not more than 20% of the units will be below market right here in beautiful Shaw. So that is what we are celebrating today. I want to thank our ANC commissioners for all of the work that they have done to support how we move Grimke forward. And I want to thank my team, Sarosha Padwala, John Falchicchio, and the entire DMPED team for the work that they have done. And I look forward to the next months being able to also celebrate the number of people who will find work here during the construction project, the new residents who will move in here, and the new employees who will be further customers for Ben's Chili Bowl and all of our other U Street neighbors. So with that, I also have the privilege now to introduce our council member for Ward 1, who's been a big supporter of how we get more affordable units across the District of Columbia, and in the very high opportunity areas like this one in Shaw, that's close to Metro, close to great amenities, close to wonderful parks and wonderful schools. So with that, your council member, Brianne Nadeau.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Dr. Smith, who I call my council member, which doesn't quite make sense, but it means something to us, right? There's so much history for me with this project. It is such an incredible moment to stand here. In fact, there's so much history with it. I've still kind of got my fingers crossed. Like, I don't want to jinx it until we actually pick up those shovels. I've been working on this project not quite as long as Dr. Smith, but since I was on the ANC, which is almost 15 years now. This was one of those projects where there were a lot of things that happened along the way that made us wonder if it was going to come together in the end. Multiple RFPs, funding issues, brilliant new mayors coming on board, coming up with better ideas to reconfigure the project just a little bit. There were lots of things along the way that made us think, okay, we got to keep holding our breath until we get to this day. And here we are now. And I do want to thank the ANC for the work that they've done. And I see some of my former colleagues here on the ANC as well who worked really hard. I also see so many members of our community who've had a stake in this project over the year. And I want to thank you all for sticking with it, for providing input, for helping this become the vision of the community and what it is today. I'm going to get a little nerdy for a second. So here we are on U Street, where we have a small area plan called the Duke Plan. And that has been something that has guided us for a long time in this corridor, but we haven't always had the energy or the resources behind it to finish it off. This is one of the projects that is going to help us fully realize the Duke Plan. It's going to bring much needed daytime foot traffic with our new architectural firm moving in and everybody coming out and having lunch, right? That's right. Right before this, I was meeting with our new U Street, Main Street team that's going to support all of our small businesses in the corridor that we just created for this fiscal year. And it's really coming together. It's really coming together between that and the Re-envisioning Reeves project that the mayor's team is leading us on right now. We are on the precipice of fully realizing the Duke Plan. And that is a really special thing because small area plans, they're a vision, but sometimes they just sit on a shelf. And that's not good for our communities. What's good for our communities is what's happening here. So much has been said about the importance of putting the museum here in a permanent home as an anchor. Dr. Smith talked about the phenomenon of gentrification here in this neighborhood. And one of the things that we have to keep doing in areas that are becoming gentrified is ensure that we solidify the history and the memory of the things that were here and build things that acknowledge the African American community, whether we're naming Anthony Bowen Way, whether we're building a permanent museum that honors the African American experience in the Civil War and in our community, or any of the many other things that we are doing and really need to be doing. This is critical because there are people who've lived here in this corridor their whole lives who don't recognize it anymore and don't think the things being built in it are for them. But this is being built for them. This is being built for all of our residents, for those who've been here a long time, for those who will come and need to understand the history. And I want us to be together in that moment and to understand the gravity of that, and just, really appreciate it and congratulate each other, because everybody in this room played a part in getting us where we are today. I'm thrilled with where the project ended up. Thank you to everybody who worked on it all these many years. I want to mention two of my staff members who worked very hard on this, Tanya Jackson, who also once worked for Frank Smith as council member, so the bloodline continues, and Ben Davis, who really helped us bring it across the finish line, and good staff work is always behind all of these politicians standing up at the microphone. So congratulations to everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here with you all, and I'm going to hold my breath a few more minutes longer just to make sure we get those shovels out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brianne. And now we're going to hear from couple members of our development team. Let me start with our friends to tell us what they have planned for the Torti Gallus headquarters. Thanks, John Torti.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau. Thank you, ANC. Thank you for all of the support that we have had trying to get here. My mother told me good things are worth waiting for. I think she's right. Torti Gallus and Partners, for Torti Gallus and Partners, today's groundbreaking is the culmination of 10 years, including that hiatus. We were on both sides of that hiatus of trying to get to Grimke. Our firm has been contributing to U Street and the U Street corridor for 20 years. In 1999, we started design on the Ellington at 13th and U, and little did we know 20 years ago that we were going to be a neighbor, and we're so happy to be that. For me, very personally, I've always wanted to have an office in the city. I've always wanted to walk to work. I've always wanted to have an office space that represents the kind of redevelopment and rebuilding and transformation that our firm represents. I've always wanted to come to work in a building that people like Frank Smith work in. It's very, very special. After 50 years of being an architect, my dream has come true with Grimke. Torti Gallus is relocating a very large part of its staff to Grimke. We are truly excited about that opportunity. We're bringing over 100 daytime staffers to this building. They're all creative people, they have creative jobs, and will bring the associated benefits like going to lunch. Yes. And as I said a minute ago, it represents what we do for a living. So it means everything to us. We see the potential in these beautiful buildings. We understand that the restoration to sustainable buildings that will live for another 100 years plus is an important part of continuing building a city, a great city like Washington. We have talented professionals that will be here every day. We have talented professionals that are now going to be walking to work like myself. So our carbon footprint goes way down. 40% of our staff lives in this neighborhood. And this is a very, very good thing. I'm 8 blocks from here, and maybe I'll have to take my tricycle here, but I'll get here. Oh, please. Let's not get into that. So thank you, Mayor Bowser. Thank you, Councilmember Nadeau. Thank you, DEMPED, for believing in us and having the faith in us to repurpose this very valuable, historic, and culturally important piece of Washington, D.C. Thank you to our partners, Community 3, Grant Epstein, to the African American Civil War Museum. Frank, I hope we become great friends. I think we're friends already. I hope we have become great friends. And thank you for the opportunity of allowing Torti Gallus to begin its next chapter as Grimke begins its next chapter. Thank you very much. Should I introduce? Let me introduce Grant. I'd like to introduce Grant Epstein, a friend, a partner, and my landlord. So,
I can read the talking points for Frank Smith. Oh, no. So now you've heard all the people who can speak do this. So mine's going to be more like an Oscars speech of thanking people. But this has been a long road, and I want to thank you all for coming here. This room is packed, and it's a testament to how many people have really worked on this and are really invested in what we're doing here. So I want to thank the mayor, the deputy mayor's office, Sarosh, Patrick and Esther, the council member, Frank, and all of your team for continuing to negotiate and discuss and work things out, because we always knew in the end we could get to a place where we could make something really special. So thank you for that. I want to thank some people that were very close to me during this project. I want to thank Irene and Debbie for all of their wisdom and their counsel throughout this process. I definitely want to thank Torty Gallus, especially John and Tom, but also all the staff at Torty Gallus who are taking this leap with us. It takes a lot to move that big of a ship, and having them all buy into that process and really be energetic about it has been a very big motivating factor for this whole for the whole team. I'd like to thank Cultural DC, who has been our arts partner on this project and who has made the art component vibrant and authentic, helped us with these shovels. This is by a local artist, JD, who did these shovels, and after we break ground with them, we will take them and make them into an art piece inside the building, so that memory can live on with the building. I'd like to thank our banking partners, Eagle Bank, Tony and Ryan and Barb and the rest of their team, greatest banking partners in this entire city, hands down. Norton Scott, Michael and Chelsea, who are also our partners and believing in us and wanting to take this journey with us. I'd like to thank Kinsley Construction, who is going to deliver this project on time and on budget. On time and on budget. So Greg and Neil and their whole team that's here, thank you again for taking on this journey. I'd last like to thank the Community 3 team, and I'd specifically like to thank Mwangi, who, it's personal to me, but he has lived this project more than anyone, and I really would like to give him a round of applause for bringing us here. So all these people had one thing in common, and it's that they never give up. And we will continue to charge forward and get to digging in the dirt so the council member can feel better about that. Okay? So thank you.
All right. Thank you to all our speakers and to the community. If you would please step up to break ground, Councilwoman and Mayor. Thank you.
Down up front. Stay down up front. Down up front. Okay, anybody want to hard at? Please take one. Thank you.
Okay, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3.